Welcome back, everyone. And we are now getting to my favorite segment of our show, which is listener questions. We love when we get to answer actual questions that you've submitted to us. We love helping individual families, whether that's the families that we work with individually on a daily basis, or all the individual families out there in radio land, podcast land, wherever y'all live right now. We love answering your questions. So do feel free to submit questions to us. We are always in the market for new questions. You can submit them to us through our website. We have a special form on our website to submit questions. If you go to info.getintocollege.com/radio-show. So it's a lot to remember. If you go to getintocollege.com, you can navigate there. You can also email us at gettingin.voiceamerica@gmail.com. Or what's probably the easiest way to submit questions is through our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Just drop into our DM, send us a question, and we can answer it on an upcoming episode. And so joining me today is one of my favorite colleagues here at Bright Horizons College Coach, Miss Christine Kenyon. Welcome,
Hello.
Christine.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have you here. And Christine and I were talking beforehand. We were both very excited about doing this segment together because while we work together, every day and occasionally go out for ice cream when it's good weather here in the Boston area, the last time we were together in sort of a public forum was a few years ago when we did an hour-long Facebook Live where we busted college admissions and finance myths. And you can go to our Facebook page and it is still there. Search for Fact or Fiction. You will find Christina and my video where we greatly embarrass ourselves. I embarrassed myself by making handwritten signs that read backwards once they were on video. And then Christine embarrassed herself with terrible dad jokes.
They were great. They were great jokes, actually.
Do you have any for us today, Christine?
I do. What's the cow's favorite animal to hang out with?
What?
A moose. My kindergartner told me that one.
Terrible. And I can't believe you had that ready to go. I'm very impressed.
You know I did.
Now let's answer some actual questions. Now that we've really annoyed all of our listeners, I can hear the fast forward button going on right now. And the first question I have for you, Christine, comes in from Natalie. And this is actually a great follow-up to our previous segment where I talked to Lisa about letters of recommendation. So I think this is a great way to put Lisa's guidance into, a real world situation. So Natalie asks, my high school junior is taking honors anatomy with the lab and AP biology. He feels more comfortable asking his anatomy teacher for a letter of recommendation than the AP bio teacher. He's getting A's in both classes, but a higher A+ in anatomy. If he wants to apply to college as a STEM major, he is undecided, but perhaps environmental engineering, physics, biology, but not pre-med. Would a letter from the anatomy teacher be sufficient to satisfy the core subject class requirement for letters of recommendation? He is looking into applying to some, not all, selective schools in the 30 to 40% acceptance rate range, but not like Ivy League colleges or the super highly selective schools. He has a 4.0 unweighted GPA and is taking all honors and AP classes. Good for him. Thank you for your input. So is that anatomy teacher recommendation, will that work?
Absolutely, yes. So the thing that I loved most about letters of recommendation when I was reviewing applications was getting a snapshot into who the student is in the classroom. So how they like to learn, how they contributed to classroom discussions. It didn't matter. I wasn't looking for a specific thing like, oh, this is the student to raise their hand every class, or, but I was looking for nuggets like this student really shines in creative based work and group projects. So if the anatomy teacher has a better insight into your son, how he works, if they have a better connection, absolutely, that's a great teacher to ask. And regardless of where that grade difference is, A versus A+, it's more about the growth of the student over the academic year. So if that anatomy teacher can really capture some good growth that the student has had, by all means, go for it. You just want a positive recommendation letter and to learn something about the student. So I say thumbs up for the anatomy teacher.
Awesome. And I love that your point that you were looking for little tidbits to get to know this student better. And I think that can be generalized, that admissions counselors aren't looking for negative things generally. Like they're looking for the positive, what reasons to admit in general.
Exactly.
And those little, they just want to get to know you better, pick out those little tidbits that a teacher could share, and don't overthink the recommendation a lot. Beyond that, I think, is the messaging.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you have a question for me, Christine, and this is one is actually not about college admissions or finance, but more about the podcast. So you want to hit me with that?
I do. All right. So this is from Namrata, and they are asking, thanks for such a valuable podcast. I am a parent of a junior beginning to navigate college admissions. I have not been through the education process here in the United States, so just beginning to understand how to navigate this process. And I see you have over 400 plus episodes. Which episodes are a must for me to catch up? I think it will be useful for any parents who are new to the process to quickly get up to speed and use a wealth of resources and information you are providing on your episodes. Did you plant this question, Shannon?
I did not, but I could have. I swear I didn't. But thank you for the question, Namrata. What I would say is we have a ton of fabulous episodes that we've recorded over the past 8 years. Too many to name. I'll just, because it pops into my head, I will just drop, it's at least one of my favorite episodes. It's the first that springs to mind that we recorded. It was October 2021, and the segment was called Why We Hate the Costco Essay. And it was a segment, I believe Ian was the host, our colleague, the other Christine Sawicki was the guest, and they were talking about, you could Google it and find it. There's this famous student wrote an essay about her trip to Costco, and it was sort of lauded online as this great essay. And then, of course, every student wanted to write their college essays about going to various big box stores. And Christine and Ian talked about, why you shouldn't try to recreate somebody else's essay, try and figure out what admissions officers want and deliver that, but how to bring yourself to the essay and what the real goal of a college essay is. So that's one that just immediately springs to mind. Is I really enjoyed that episode and found it very helpful. As a non-admissions expert, after listening to it, I immediately emailed Christine and Ian. It was like, I get it now. I get what you're supposed to do in a college essay. So I would recommend that particular segment. But beyond that, I would say anyone just sort of joining us now, yes, we have an 8-year history, but we do intentionally cover, we know people are joining us all the time, and there'll be new students writing essays this year. There'll be new students taking on college visits. There'll be new students applying for financial aid. So we intentionally will cover those topics over and over again, hopefully with new angles, new guests talking about them. But you don't have to dig back into the archives to get the information you need now. You can start listening now and just listen forward. If you have time and want to dig back in the archives, go for it. You can search for any particular topics you might be interested in. If you want to know how to negotiate scholarships, you can search, on our blog, I think is a great resource, which is at blog.getintocollege.com. We write up summaries of all the different podcasts that we do. So if there's a certain topic you want to hear about on the podcast, search on our blog and it will show you the episode that was from, so you can go and listen to it. You'll also find written blog posts on the topic that will be helpful as well. You can also search on the Voice America website, on Apple Podcasts. So if there are certain things that you want to learn about, you can search the archives. Otherwise, feel free to just start listening now, and we'll get you all the information that you need.
Love it.
Okay, next question for you, Christine, is from Ilana, and she says, there is so much focus on activities and well-roundedness, But what about the child who gets very good grades, but high anxiety prevents them from doing any group activities outside of the house? Will they still have semi-competitive college options?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing to remember is that not all colleges review applications holistically. So there's the numeric review process, which is based on the academic data, transcript, and testing where applicable. And that's sort of the base for the entire admission process. But beyond that, there are some schools that add the holistic factor, which is, okay, what about everything else? What makes you a compelling candidate? And so for a school like Cal Poly Pomona or any of the Cal states, they don't look at activity. There is no space to indicate what activities you have been a part of on your application. And there are many, many schools that have a very numerically based application process where activities, they're not even a part of the process. Right. So know that, number one. And number two, when it comes to how a student spends their time outside of the classroom, I think we've really seen a shift in this the last couple of years. So 15 years ago, 20 years ago, being well-rounded really was the buzzword in admissions. And you would kind of hear that being said in admissions offices. I haven't really heard that when I've been visiting schools more recently. And instead, it almost feels as if the pendulum has swung the other way, and colleges are talking more about students who are well lopsided, in the sense that instead of having students kind of spread themselves out and do a bunch of different clubs and activities, whether or not they really like all of them, just to have something to fill on their application, what colleges seem to prefer now is just sort of understanding, all right, what's a handful of ways in which you've spent your time outside of the classroom, and why? Why did you choose to spend your precious free time in this way with this community of people? And there's no hierarchy, there's no preference colleges have for students who do one activity versus the other, theater versus football versus working at McDonald's. So I think that when it comes to activities and extracurriculars for colleges that do review applications holistically, they ask for that information because they want to see that the student is able to establish community outside of the classroom, because college is a living and a learning experience. They want to envision how the student might engage with the college or university once they get to campus, because colleges don't want to admit all the same type of student. They want to make sure they have kids who are going to cheer on the basketball team, and also students who are going to go to open mic night and perform. So colleges just kind of want to understand how a student might get involved outside of the classroom on their campus. And generally, I just think activities, they teach you these soft skills that you can't really learn as easily in school. So time management skills, conflict resolution. That's why colleges that review applications holistically might have a bit more focus on these activities, is because they just want to understand, how a student has built some of these soft skills or grown within them. So yes, there are highly competitive colleges, semi-competitive colleges that review numerically and will not even allow a student to input information about activities. And there are an entire range of universities that are holistic in nature that will allow students to reflect on their activities, but also welcome students with a variety of different ways in which they spend their time, whether it's a summer experience a student has or family responsibilities. There's always something that a student thinks doesn't count or can't be kind of listed on their application that can be focused on in that sort of extracurricular section, essay section, etc.
Perfect. And I think that is a great stopping point for now. We're just going to take a quick break, and we will be back with more of your questions.